Safety news on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932. Protecting the future of working families, Teamsters1932.org.
I like that. That's our music right there. I said what you think about the new music, see?
I like it.
I'd have had it, yeah. My nephew actually did that, so that way we can get in the right mindset.
Yes.
And be like, you know, that when
That's
people
funky.
ask for
That's
it.
really funky.
Yeah.
I like that. Hello, world, family and friends. Welcome to the E Factor Radio Show. I'm your host, Cornelius Bryant. Today we have not one, but we have two special guests. Before I get to my special guest, I want to make a comment real quick. I mean, the last show we did, you know, when I saw it and I looked like I was fat with a fat stomach. But, you know, I goes, I think that was just the angle from the camera. I know, huh?
Wow.
But anyways, my nephew last weekend, he had a, you know, now you do men and women at these baby showers. So he had a baby shower. So anyway, when I saw the pictures from it, I was standing up from the side and I looked, I was like, wow, that thing is real. You know, I looked like, remember the candies, the Milk Dud candies back in the day?
Yeah.
He's young. Anyway, it was like chocolate, and then it looked like somebody that put a Milk Dud on top of a brown pear. But that was my side view. And I was like, I have to do something about that, you know? So I ate one candy less this week, and so I'm cutting back.
That's progress, man. That's progress for sure.
I'm cutting back because I'm trying to slim down before the summer. But anyways, today.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Anyways, I know, huh? Today we have Jacqui Dobens. Jacqui, say your name.
It's Jacqui Dobens.
Okay, but she was here before. A lot of people remember her, but we have our special guest on the side of her.
I'm still special.
Yeah, you are special. That's why our special guest. But I don't want to take away from your speciality. Is that a
Thank
word,
you.
speciality?
Sure.
It is.
It is?
Yes.
It is
because
today.
you were here before, and this is his first time. So, Nick, say your last name again.
Nieblis. Nick Nieblis.
Nick Nieblis.
Yes.
And we have Nick Nieblis. You probably thinking, what do those three people have in common? Nothing. But we're here.
Plenty.
Wow.
We got tons.
Yeah, really, we do. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start off. I'm going to let each person introduce himself and tell us a little about themselves before we go on. So, Jacqui, we'll start
He
with
is
you.
acting as though we don't talk all the time.
We do.
And he knows my name is Jacqui. And there's a story behind that. Actually, there's 7 Jackies in my family. And you know, when you're 13 years old and you lose your mind and your brain comes back. So I was trying to find my identity. And I took it from being Jackie, Jackie, to Jacqui. So now people think it's Jacqui and Jaquayas and all these other things. It's really Jackie.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Okay,
I don't know why, but I don't know why he keeps acting as though he doesn't talk to me. Literally, I think I know what part of it is. We really don't identify when we're talking with our names. We usually say, "Hello, my friend."
That's right.
So
That's
I think
right.
that so he hasn't
right.
had
Say,
so in
"Hello,
his defense,
friend."
in his defense, he hasn't had a lot of practice.
No, I haven't.
With saying my name, so I'm going to go ahead and give him a soft pass today. So, as we've come to know now, my name is Jacqui Dobens, and I am the cheerleader and the founder and program director of Much More Than Mentorship. And what we are doing is we are changing and elevating the game of supplemental curriculum. And these two gentlemen here have stepped up in such a major way that I'm honored to work with them, to be on this journey with them, have a lot of fun, and really empower the students at the various schools in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino County, eventually LA County at some point. So that's me.
Oh, just into me. My name is Nick Nieblis, spelled N-I-K, actually, because at some point, my full name is Nicholas, right? And so at some point, I realized, well, if I could go by Nick, then I can spell it any way that I want because it's a shortened version of my full name, right? Because I would spell like N-I-C-K, but then I'm like, well, where's the K come from? Because it's N-I-C-H-O-L-A-S.
Right.
And then so I was like, well,
Wow.
if I could spell it N-I-C-K, then I could spell it N-I-K.
How old were you when you did that?
Like 6th grade? Something
Close
like
to
that.
13.
Right? About this when you're starting to figure out your
I'm
identity and
telling
stuff,
you, there's
right?
something about it.
Yeah, see?
See?
So And
I didn't even know that.
Right?
We learned that together.
So my name is Nick Niebles. I'm the owner of Improv School Redlands off of Tennessee in Redlands, California. We teach improv comedy, long-form improv comedy, as well as short-form improv comedy. We have stand-up comedy classes, stand-up comedy shows, improv shows, and we basically just have a whole lot of fun. I tend to, a lot of people come in thinking, they have a whole lot of different ideas about improv or comedy in general, and what we end up doing a lot of is, people want to learn how to be creative, but I generally think most people are already creative.
Absolutely.
And
I
so
can attest to that.
what we help them do is basically attempt to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, which is like, hey, go on stage and make up a 5-minute scene about two people in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of pressure. And
Yes.
so
It is.
we go through exercises and trainings to help people learn how to kind of feel a little bit more comfort in that uncertainty, because that's where creativity comes from.
Yes.
So
Wow. And so that you say it's about 5 minutes that they go up there and do these things?
Oh, well, we can go as long as 25 minutes, actually. We have long-form teams that do about
Oh, okay.
25-minute sets,
Wow.
but, we start really small with, like, little exercises that we do between, like, groups and stuff, but then ultimately it moves to just like you would see in a play, like two-person scenes or that translate into, like, longer-form storytelling. And so it can seem kind of daunting, but it's a whole lot of fun when you get to do it, and especially when you have a lot of people around you that are very supportive and get in the same kind of mindset of saying, like, yes to everything that is being presented,
Oh, so you can almost like go in there and live out your fantasy character or something like that.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Oh, okay. Do you have a fantasy character?
No, I am 100% authentically myself
Okay, but I have a fantasy character.
at all times.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the movie The Godfather.
Sure.
You remember the scene when Sonny found out that Michael was taking over the family operations from him?
Okay.
So then I'll be Sonny. Pop, what's wrong, Pop? I was stepped over. I'm the oldest, Pop. I'm smart.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, see? Godfather.
So you'll have to come down to the improv.
I'm shy in front of people.
Right. Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll get up, then I go, hey, Pop. Then I turn around, I'll run away or something.
Said no one ever about you, Cornelius. Said no one ever about you.
Yeah.
So much shyness in this room right,
Right.
now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now they all know the secret's out. We have that in common. You said we
Right,
had nothing in
see?
common. We have that in common.
Right.
Yes.
That's what we have in common. Because we definitely don't have hair in common because I am left out.
Oh,
But-
like stars in heaven.
Yes. But anyways, you know what we're going to do? We have this, and we may stick to it, we may not. But you started off explaining about the things we do.
Yes.
So I want you to take the lead on this. And then I'll just
Absolutely, I
chime
can do
in
that.
if I can think of something good, or if I think of something bad, I'm still doing the same thing.
Well, I know that. 'Cause-
So go ahead, Jacqui.
Well, I'll start with what Nick was sharing. To be able to take that skill set and to share it with the students was incredible. And you did a fantastic job. Watching you take students that have gone through, we were at San Gorgonio Middle School, let
There
me
you
kind of
go.
rewind it. We were at San Gorgonio Middle School over in Beaumont, California. And we had the top contenders from the Ron Clark Academy Amazing Shape program. And what we were there to do was to empower them, because the national competition is this upcoming week. So they're heading over to Georgia in like the next couple of days to go and compete. And I was talking to Lauren, the assistant principal there, and also to Chris, the principal, Chris Horton. And I said, what if we were to take something and gear it towards what some of the challenges that I witnessed going through volunteering at the various scenarios? Because I noticed that the students, they were really good with the checklist. They had the checklist of what they should do, how they should present themselves. However, in that, I saw that they lost themselves. I didn't get to experience their personalities. And I said, if I could find someone that could teach them how to speak more extemporaneously, off the cuff, and as you said, to become more comfortable in uncomfortable or seemingly uncomfortable situations, that could be a huge benefit to them. And so I called Nick. He answered, and he responded favorably, and so now he's come on board to help them. And it was cool to watch the process, because it started off very slow, very rudimentary, and you could see initially the kids kind of like, I don't know. And then to go from there to, it was very fluid. They ended up having this story that was so convoluted, and it didn't necessarily make sense, but it made sense from the standpoint of seeing that skill like a muscle being exercised from the time that he started to the time that he finished his session. And so to be able to pivot and to recognize and see the deficiencies that are in the great job that they're doing over at Beaumont with the teachers, but to say, where is something where, it's one of those get in where you fit in kind of thing. I said, where can we bring something that's going to be of benefit to them? And then Cornelius shared about poise under pressure, because it is speaking of the word daunting, it is a daunting task to have kids leave where they are the big fish in a small pond, ostensibly. They've gone through all of the rigors of the Amazing Shake and the elimination rounds, and they have, and it's rigorous. It's no joke. Sure. There are some of the things that I see them go through so graciously that I think you could teach us adults a thing or two or three or 10. And so when Cornelius came up, it was really pretty cool, because he took a more self-deprecating role, if you will, that was exactly what they are going to experience when you're following someone else. You don't know, you see some hot shot there, and you go, oh, he's probably been learning this, since he was in the 5th grade, and this student is, say, in the 8th. And so when he came up, it was so cool. I loved it. He said, you're going to encounter these things, and how do you make sure that you're, being authentically yourself, yet still say, I want to still do the best I can for me, whatever that looks like. So it has been really cool assembling this dream team of individuals. I have about 14 presenters that are helping us with the schools, and the current schools that we are with is San Gorgonio in Beaumont. We have Tomas Rivera over in Paris, and then we have Columbia Middle School over in Adelanto/Victorville area, and we're expanding all the time and having conversations. But to be able to bring something that is new and fresh, and for me to be able to, since I'm the ninja, to be able to pivot when I see something, it's one of those, you see a need, you feel it, is amazing. And I just have to publicly thank both of you for your willingness to step up and go on this wild ride with me. I said some of the stories we're going to be able to share are going to be incredible, and I'm really looking forward to when they come back from Georgia at the RCA. I'm really looking forward to them saying, oh, this is what I had, the situation you said I was going to encounter, or remember when you said I was going to feel like this, I did, and I took what you said and I stopped and I found a song to anchor me, or I found these words to make me feel better, a mantra, if you will. So that's what we're doing, and I feel honored and blessed, really, to be the head cheerleader of this crazy ride.
Yeah, I feel, what's interesting is I really enjoy how you said filling in those gaps, right? Because when it comes to parenting, I'm a parent. I have 4 kids at home, ages 11 to 17 right now.
Wow.
I also, my wife was a teacher, currently a program specialist. She, we've seen like all of these sides of both the education, that our children are going through, and the students that we are trying to reach out to as well through these kinds of programs. Sure. And realizing that like no one person or one entity can really meet all of the needs that exist out there for these students. And so having the opportunity to, approach these, students and try and make them even more well-rounded in these different ways. It's been really an honor to get in there and share what I think are these like really fun games that are often very silly, as you guys experienced when we do them, zip, zap, zop, and like one word at a time story, and like ad pitch, where like the kids have to be like ad men and they're pitching their products to each other and whatnot. All of those are very simple and silly things, but they teach us so much about how these kids interact in these kind of where it would feel very pressure, right, to be funny and creative and all of that.
Of course.
And then allowing them to find that piece of like, oh, I don't have to try so hard. I don't
Right.
have to plan ahead. I just have to be present in the moment
Yes.
and react and respond to what's happening right in front of me instead of spending all this time going through that checklist, like you said, or doing the thing that I think is most right. Just be present. And I think
Yes.
it was really awesome to be able to communicate that message to the students.
Yes.
Right, that's so true. And you know what? We're going to take a quick break. But on the other side of the break, since you mentioned about 4 kids, what we're going to talk about is something a lot of people don't think. Because if you're a teacher or you're in this situation, you have all these different students. The thing we hardly ever think about is each person's personality. And so on the other side of this break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right. I'm your host on the E Factor, Cornelia, special guest, Jacqui, Nick. We'll be back and so-and-so and so-and-so. Yeah, we will.
We
Thank
will.
you.
KCAA Radio has openings for 1-hour talk shows. If you want to host a radio show, now is the time. Make KCAA your flagship station. Our rates are affordable and our services are second to none. We broadcast to a population of 5 million people. Plus, we stream and podcast on all major online audio and video systems. If you've been thinking about broadcasting a weekly radio program on real radio plus the internet, contact our CEO at 281-599-9800. 281-599-9800. You can Skype your show from your home to our Redlands, California studio where our live producers and engineers are ready to work with you personally. A radio program on KCAA is the perfect work from home avocation in these stressful times. Just type kcaaradio.com into your browser to learn more about hosting a show on the best station in the nation or call our CEO for details. 281-599-9800.
And now, the voices of KCAA with an exciting announcement.
Want to hear NBC News or KCAA anywhere you go? Well, now there's an app for that.
KCAA is celebrating 25 years and our silver anniversary with a brand new app.
The new KCAA app is now available on your smart device, cell phone, in your car, or any place.
Just search KCAA on Google Play or in the Apple Store.
One touch and you can listen on your car radio, Bluetooth device, Android Auto, or Apple CarPlay.
Catch the KCAA buzz in your earbuds or on the streets, celebrating 25 years of talk, news, and excellence with our new KCAA app.
Just do it and download it.
KCAA, celebrating 25 years.
All right. Welcome back to the E Factor Radio Show. So before we left, we were talking about kids, because Nick said about his 4 kids. And of course, what we're talking about today is the kids that we work with in these different programs. And so I think a lot of times we don't talk about personalities or something like that. Because when you're saying, even when we got there, when you're so programmed and you're so focused, you become robotic. And so you're doing the things that you were taught. You're going by this list they gave you. You need to do this, you need to do that. So almost all the students, when they first come up, they're all in that mindset of, you know, and so they're not really shining with their personality.
Not at
So
all.
that
It's true.
exercise that you help them do, it helps them sort of loosen up
Totally.
and reveal their own personality. You know, at first,
Totally.
you know, they were all, they were answering us questions like if they're on stage with a mic, and
Right.
and then you're saying, you know, like you said, what you said, have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun. So, you know, we always say, learning is fun, but is reciting what we learned fun? That's the
Right.
question. And so
Good point.
all those things is that you help them bring out their own personality with those
Yes.
exercises. As a matter of fact, I took notes too. And so if you see me using it, you're going to be like, hey, that seemed like me. Like, no, I'm the original. Like you said, I'm the original. But that'll be that because it was really good. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then you keep saying about amazing shake.
Yes.
And the thing is, a lot of people, they're saying, what's amazing shake? They think, you shake, but it's not that kind of shake. And so we're going to let you give some clarity on that.
Absolutely.
All right,
appreciate
go
that.
ahead. Whoever wants to go next.
I say Nick.
Oh man. Okay. Well, from what I mean, I'm more of an improv expert, and so my experience with Amazing Shake is somewhat limited. But it seems like a really interesting thing. Whereas the Amazing Shake is essentially a handshake, right? It's referring to kind of like a greeting and meeting people, or no? Is that?
No.
I don't know, but I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
No. Okay. So I tried to defer. I should have just stayed
take
in
it
my
over,
in
Jacqui.
my-
I don't know
right.
what I'm
No,
Listen,
no.
every once in a while, I decide to, defer, and this obviously wasn't the space with which to do that.
Not today.
So the Amazing Shake was created by Ron Clark, who is an educator based in Atlanta, no, maybe not Atlanta, but in Georgia. And the Amazing Shake is a way to disseminate durable life skills to students. And one of the things that they have it's called the gauntlet, and that's where they have real life case scenarios where you would encounter someone, for example, if you were to place an order at a restaurant and it came back incorrect, how do you handle that? How do you show up for that? How do you, if you are the man, if you're role playing, the student is role playing as the manager of that establishment, how do you diffuse that situation amicably, as opposed to just popping off and getting all into your feelings or not being professional? I mean, we see that's why I've said on more than one occasion here, some adults can learn some of the things that the students are learning. Sure. I mean, you see it all the time.
The popping off part.
Oh my goodness, yes. Even seeing someone just lose their cookie because, standing in line at a store because they didn't get X, Y, or Z, and then to see these students who were very well poised through training, but it also shows that it is more than just us learning things, reading, writing, and math. We need to be able to know how to navigate. So they'll learn things that are even important for their career, their budding careers, once they graduate. I like the fact that the things that they're learning and that we're showing and modeling to them are things that will last a lifetime. So everything from work in the room, they have these big belly up tables and the students walk in and it's mayhem. It's a frenetic energy unlike anything else that you'll experience. And all these students are coming up and they introduce themselves, they give you good eye contact, a firm handshake. And those are things that there's a lot of adults that give you this limp hand. I go, really? What are we doing right now? Yeah. And so what happened with my seeing and being introduced to that was I was pitching my services as mentorship and supplemental curriculum to San Gorgonio. And I found out they invited me to come and to be a judge. And I said, okay. They said, so much of what you're saying is in line with what we are teaching the students. Right. And they've been doing that for like 6-7 years running. And I said, oh, okay. And I was so impressed by it that I went back and I retooled a lot of my modules and the way that I'm disseminating information by us modeling these things. So, for example, when we were with the top students that are going to the national championship, mine was to how to introduce yourself. How to be fully present. What's important about you doing well. They're really tapping into that part of yourself that, to your point, personality-wise, we don't even let the kids express themselves in a way that is conducive to even caring about them, if you really think about it. If I don't care about you, then if I'm not connected to you in some way and seeing your personality, I'm not going to be interested in that you have a dog named Fluffy, any of those things, that you are planning on being an engineer, nothing. We'll never get to that place. And everything that we need people to facilitate. So the Amazing Shake is a great platform with which to do that. I often say it's like when you have a dog and you want to give them a pill, you wrap it in cheese. To me, the Amazing Shake is the cheese that we're being able to disseminate and to present the durable life skills to the students in a fun and exciting and new and fresh way.
Yeah.
Well, you say about connection is so important because a lot of times we miss that, especially in today's time, with the computers and this and that. And
post-COVID.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a text. Hi, and I'll give you a little wavy hand. Hello.
Right.
But connection is important because post-COVID, and now we're getting back to the in-person things that we do in person. And so when you make this connection, and that's important because you want to let kids know, even like with them, no matter what happens at the competition, you still want to be able to connect with people from a personal level, make friends and all this stuff. Because if not, you'll be sitting in your shell, and then if you don't make out, because like you said, you go from the little school here, and now you're going up there and you're competing with all these people who's been doing all these things for years, and you may not win. And so when you come back, how are you going to face all your former classmates and all your family and your friends, knowing that you went there and you lost in the first round.
Right.
So now you're able to connect with people, so it's different. So you learn from that, as opposed to if you have no connection with people, you become isolated.
I love that you shared that.
Box.
Yeah, I love that you shared that during your session because that's real talk. you know, and I don't have a poker face or a poker voice. So they would have known, oh, this is performative. So that's why I just show up, and that's why I said I'm 100% authentic, because if not, I'm just going to get busted anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no need in me even doing that. But I think that was, to your point, that was one of the highlights I felt of you sharing that, because that's real. It's a competition. And, you know, we had started doing those participation trophies. You know, they're not doing that over at the academy. They're not doing that. It's a real thing. You need to show up, show out to the best of your ability. Yeah. And I love when you said that. You said, you know, hey, you've already won. The fact that they've already gone through all these rigors, and the things that the biggest win to me is that they have these things instilled in them now. It's theirs, and they've taken ownership, even most importantly.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is, like, I do want to try and claw back some kind of credibility in that the Amazing Shake is, in my mind, that's the way that I think of it, right? It's like that initial interaction, right?
You're right.
The handshake, the thing, you know, and because it is, we've talked about before, it is kind of hard to describe because it's this thing that everyone needs, but nobody can really pin down exactly what. You can't just add 1 + 1 and all of a sudden be socially and emotionally aware.
Correct.
Right? You know?
Right.
So it requires these situations where, you know, emotions and social situations collide, and sometimes, a lot of times, as we've seen from videos online and whatever else, people lose themselves and they end up doing things that they regret later on, or they end up missing connections with people that they could have made because they were too in their head about something or occupied with something else. And so the ability for people to react and respond in the moment without, like, we've talked a lot about, like, it sounds like preparation, right? Like there's so much that people can prepare themselves with, knowledge and skills and everything like that. But ultimately, what happens when you are presented with the opportunity, right? You have to take that opportunity.
That's right.
And if all of your preparation doesn't come to fruition in that moment, then that opportunity is going to pass by. You know, and I feel like that really is kind of the core of the Amazing Shake, of like teaching these kids how to react and respond in situations that all human beings, all adults really, have to interact and navigate through. And so it's giving them those scenarios and also giving them those tools to navigate those scenarios, which I think was really, really interesting to see that.
And that's why we are actually filling in that gap of the preparation, because prior, even the ones that I've heard of and that I've seen online, they're thrust into this, and there's some preparation, but you also have to consider, in my opinion, the bandwidth for these teachers. They're on full tilt. So for us to be able to come in with fresh eyes, fresh perspectives, different experiences, not having been in the educational industry, having more of the entrepreneurial coming from that space, it is fresh eyes to be able to see what's lacking, what's missing, how can we improve, how can we plus this, how can we make this so that they will do even better, not just in the competition, but in life. You know, what are some of the things? I was blessed. I'm second-generation entrepreneur, and my parents had a very successful janitorial business. And they would have these, where the clients would come over to our home, and I call them brown juice parties. And so they would have these brown juice parties, and I would meet a lot of different people that, you know, they didn't look like me. My dad spoke like 7 languages. So I was thrust into that environment. It was safe, and it was at our home. However, you had to learn to give a good, firm handshake, and I'm 9 years old, you know, and you go and you look at them in the eye, and you address them all Mr. and Mrs. Jones and whichever their names are. And so that's something that's lacking. And then, like you were saying before about with post-COVID, it's even a greater need. There's so many things that we don't even know that we missed or that the students missed out on by being shut down. I mean, the shutdown was more than just the physical shutdown. There was an emotional shutdown. There was a mental shutdown. There was a social shutdown. And so what we are doing collectively, and all the other presenters, is we are supplementing that. We are adding to that and creating a safe space where we're going to give it to them. We're going to be pow straight shooters, you know, give it to them straight. So.
Right. I have a question. It's off what we're talking about, but since we're here, you had a brown bag. Did you have red cups?
No,
I'm just asking. People who understand, who know they know.
It was the brown juice?
It was the brown juice.
Okay.
No,
right.
my family was very into those beveled I remember the beveled crystal heavy cups.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember those.
They had like a decanter.
Oh,
and then
please. And they
pour
had the
those,
cart.
and then,
It was,
that's
listen,
fancy.
listen, my mom was very into the hostess with the mostest thing.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, she wanted them to renew those
Right.
janitorial contracts.
Right.
So,
Right,
you
right,
know,
yeah.
so there was no expense spared.
Right.
Little
And,
social lubricant.
absolutely.
You know, usually the red cups is when people go outside away from everybody, they had the red cups. But anyways, what you said, see, I always get off track.
Wow.
But what you said was important because you grew up in that environment.
I did.
And so the thing we don't realize is that a lot of these kids, they're growing up in this environment, and there's so much expectations for them to perform, so much to accomplish things. And to be honest, a lot of them, they really don't want to participate in this, but it's a thing that their parents are making them do, and they're having this expectation for what they want them to accomplish and to achieve. And so one thing that we're able to teach them is that no matter what happens, you know, stay yourself, enjoy life, use it as a good experience, because we never know what the parents' expectations are.
That's a very
And
good
you know,
point.
just like you said, you grew up in this environment, so you had all this exposure and experience.
That's true.
And so kids who have parents who are doctors and lawyers, you know, they think that you're going to have that same ability to learn and perform like they did, but you may not have it.
That's right.
So you have all this pressure on you when you're going to these things. So that's why you become robotic, because you've just trained and studied all these things for the academia part, but your personal identity or your personality, that's the last thing anybody wants to see. They want you to just achieve, and win. So that puts a lot of pressure on them. So when you did like the exercise, you kept emphasizing fun. You know, that's why when they were doing it, we saw over a period of time that they started out robotic. Then after a while, they were like, They were actually having fun and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
That's the thing to me too. I think that, you know, so often we tell kids like, hey, be yourself. You know, be yourself.
We don't mean it.
Well, I mean, yeah, right.
Sometimes.
We either don't, and what we really mean is like, you know, do the things that I want you to do to make me happy. But then ultimately, any good parent, any good citizen is going to want individuals to like be themselves, be their most happy. But nobody's really around to teach anybody how to do that. Right. We are around to tell people all of these expectations that we put on them. Right.
That's
that
true.
it's like, hey, you can be this kind of person or this kind of person, whatever else. But there needs to be, I think, a certain amount of guidance for children, for even adults who are given opportunities to sit in that kind of space in between all of those expectations and go, who is really me? Who am I?
Right.
And generally, our truest selves are curious and fun and confident and all of these things that that really paint like a holistic picture of like a good, well-rounded human being.
Right.
You know, and I think that a lot of what we are talking about is like attempting to teach people how to embrace, you know, who they are outside of these titles and expectations and grades and whatever else. It's like, because yes, that's all the work. That's all the work. But who are you?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I think that that's the thing that I really look forward to helping these kids embrace.
Well, that's why one of the teachers that was in attendance, he had brought one of the students. He said, heck, the teachers need this. You know, he went through all of the different sessions, and I could see him writing profusely, and, you know, and then I saw several of the other ones typing, you know, on their computers, taking notes and fully engaged. And it's very important that connecting and developing enough of a rapport with them where there is that level of, okay, well, they didn't scream at me when I made a mistake. They didn't say I was wrong or bad or anything like that. They just hit the reset button. We started all over. And that was important, too, that we were all going through. And I thought it was kind of cool how even though we all had 3 different points of start, it was like a tapestry where it all wove together at the very end. And it was really cool that we were just able to vibe off each other. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's important because like we keep saying modeling. In order for you to model somebody, you have to be there.
That's right.
You have to be there. You know, we can go on, people say, oh, well, if I want to learn something, I just go on YouTube and I YouTube it. That's good, but, you know, there's other things that come up. So in the midst of YouTubing something, if something was to go different than the YouTube, how do you handle it?
Correct.
How do you bounce back?
Correct.
And I was like, oh, and now you're lost. And you
right.
you know, but this is modeling is very important because, especially you say we're coming out of COVID, because I know grown people, you know, like growner than me, that means really grown, they haven't left the house since COVID.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they work from home, they get their food delivered, everything
wow.
comes to the house. And the only time they may leave the house if they have to go to the doctor or something comes up. But other than that, for the most part, they're 90% at home. And then they've got almost, I call it a fear of going out. They goes, oh, well, what do I say to people? You know, you've been gone for so long, you don't even know what to say to people. You just pass by people and go, hi, and keep going.
It's like
you don't have to
social
say
atrophy.
anything. Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's, wow. That's crazy to me because, you know, of course, we're here, so we know we don't stay at home all the time.
Right.
But over a period of time, that's what happens to people.
Yes.
And even with the kids, like you say, they were all home for all this time. And so when they're coming out, this helps them to, even the ones who just participated who didn't win. Because I think the group started off with 100 kids.
Oh, no, it was more than that. Oh, no.
Yeah, it was.
No. Remember that when we were there, it was, they have this gong, and you have a certain period of time, I'll just say 90 seconds for these kids to come up and to introduce themselves. And when they first come in, it's like a concert hall, literally. They open the door and the kids just, because they're trying to get their scorecards, they want to have it filled up, you know, because it's a competition. So they're making a beeline towards you. You almost go, ooh, you have to brace yourself.
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
At least mentally, you know, you're, oh my gosh. And so there was at least 200, I want to say it was 208, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know it was quite a few.
It was quite a few. And I mean, it was just, and that was more of when they had the process of elimination at Sanjee. Then they went up to that and they opened it up to, I think, about 10 schools in the district. And again, each of those schools had their own process of elimination. And so again, you're standing there at the belly up, and I mean, you know, the kids come and then gong, and then they walk away, and then the next crew comes in.
Yeah, gong. No, that's not funny, but yet, so if you stop and think about it, when you started off with those 200 kids, everyone rushed in with this excitement, anticipation that I want to win.
Yes.
So can you imagine how the ones who got gonged in the first round felt? Wow, you know, and then they go, and it's like, you know, am I this, am I that, am I stupid, or, you know, you never know what's running through their mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's because of their personality. A lot of the time they just didn't have the personality to go up and talk to people.
Absolutely.
I mean, they could have been one of the smartest students in school.
Absolutely.
But because of their lack of personality, I'd say, or lack of used to being around people, when they get there, it's like they freeze. Oh,
Right.
Well, what do I say? And then they go, sign my card.
Yes, that's how it was, wasn't it?
Sign my card.
Yes, that's how it was.
Yeah, because I'm not going to say they were better or worse than another. It's just that experience and exposure is important. So had they had the training and things that they had at the kids had for the last one, I'm sure they would have done much better, because now their nerves are not all jumpy and they're not,
Well,
sign my card.
Right. Well, that's why the upcoming sessions will be more of, you know, so brace yourselves, fellas.
Shoot.
The upcoming sessions.
This is news to me right now. Okay, yeah.
Well, you know, I know how to, you know, drop it. Yeah. The upcoming sessions will be for more of the general kids that are going through the process of elimination.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to that, even though I know it'll be more work and it'll be, you know, more involved. However, I really believe that there'll be more of a positive impact that we'll be able to make, that we'll be able to see that in a short period of time. So I'm really looking forward to what that's going to look like, that iteration of it.
Right, because you want them to get as much benefit out of these programs as possible.
Absolutely.
You know what's interesting is you guys keep talking about these things where we are talking about how these kids need to socialize, right? And COVID and people staying at home, a lot of people working from home now. And something that Jackie and I were talking about just the other day is there's this concept of like the third space, right? And to where back in the day, you know, a lot of people, most everybody, they went to work, they had home, and they had church, or they had some kind of like local social group that they belonged to in some way, right? Nowadays, most of our social groups are online, right? They're either online in Facebook groups or Reddit or wherever else. And people or they're gaming, you know, with their social groups too.
Right.
And so there's not a whole lot of face-to-face interactions going on, not just for kids, but also for adults, right? And so as a parent, you know, when I see something in my children that I go, hey, I don't like that, you're not doing that right, I will be very effective at addressing it if I go, let's look at myself really quick here. You know, hey, you're not really picking up after yourself as I'm looking at my dishes I haven't rinsed off. You know what I mean? And so we as adults are entering this interesting era where there's not a whole lot of space or time to socialize with other adults. You know, there's not a lot of adult people that have like more than one or two adult friends that hang out with on a general consistent basis.
Right.
And so I feel like that there is this you know, pandemic of people being socially isolated, just like you're talking about. And we need to have these programs for students in order to have this kind of extra special focus on socialization.
Right.
And I think adults need to find their spaces too, right? Like Improv School Redlands is one space where you can end up, you know, but you could also join a bowling league, learn how to do pottery, like do art, right? Also have conversations with your kids, right? These are all ways in which our kids can learn how to socialize because we are also learning how to socialize, right? And growing in that ourselves as adults.
Right. Well, that goes into the modeling. You know, I was talking to Nick the other day and I said, you know, gone are the days of do as I say, not as I do. And one of the things that's really important to me is that whatever the session topic is, that we're modeling that so that they can see that, to your point of what you were saying, you know, of making sure that they're watching us. So then I change the way that I disseminate the information based on that. So I give them the opportunity to have it modeled, then they imitate it. Right? Then after they imitate it, then they assimilate it. So they get acclimated to it. They get okay to get a more of a comfort level. And then once they get mastery, whatever that looks like for them individually, then they can go and innovate. In other words, then they can go off script because then we know that they've gotten whatever it is. And being able to do that and teach them the tools, the behind the scenes, you know, the behind the curtain, you know, the Wizard of Oz curtain, if you will, they'll know why are you doing that? Because I was child that you couldn't just tell me to go and do X, Y, or Z. My first response was why. And if you couldn't give me that, then I'm not doing it. You know, and I'll deal with the consequences of it later, but I'm not doing it. So I recognize that with the students, and I lean in towards that to make sure that we're not saying one thing and being incongruent on the other. You know, we're not just going and Googling something real quick and saying, okay, I got this, they won't know, or you know, trying to be so cool and be their friend that we're not giving them things that is actually going to give them some type of viability for their lives.
I would say too, like you touched on a great point about how the ability of an instructor or teacher or even a parent to explain why to the child is an important part of directing those kids, right? Like I have students sometimes just in my improv classes, and I teach everyone. I've had students from the age of 8 years old to the age of 75 and older. And to be honest, teaching people doesn't really change all that much throughout those ages, because a lot of people just want to know that you like them and that you care about them, you know, and then also that you have a good reason why you are telling them what you are telling them, right? And so I run into this sometimes where I'm doing, hey, we're doing a silly game where we're clapping our hands and trying to like rhyme, or we're just saying zip, zap, zop over and over again. And somebody's going, all right, man. What is this? You know, why are we doing this? And I have an answer. You know, I can say this is to help us build our spontaneity. It's to help us build our reflexes. It's to warm up our brains so that we're ready to be in a creative space. This is also a way in which when we make mistakes, we can realize what our brain does in that moment of making that mistake and push through. So there's a bunch of things that I totally can explain when I'm teaching, and I think that that's super important for both parents and teachers alike to be like, yeah, I'm teaching you something, but I also know why I'm teaching you something.
Well, Jacqui, I grew up in a different era. So in the era I grew up,
here it comes.
If they said that, that's what was said. And in our mind, we asked questions, why? But we didn't vocalize it. And so, you know, we said, parents said, do this, do that. You may hesitate, or you may not want to do it, but we didn't ask why.
I said I had consequences, you know.
Yeah. But back then, our
said-
consequences, see, we didn't want the consequences, so we figured, hey, we'll find a way to get around it. Because sometimes consequences are not worth, your actions are not worth the consequence. It's like, okay, I'll do it, and then, whatever, I'll figure out why later, or I don't need to know why.
They tried to convince me that the consequences were, but I still wanted to know, why am I doing this? That's just how I'm wired, and I've just, the best part about, or the best thing that I believe that my parents did for me was they did not say, I remember saying to my mother, my parents ultimately ended up getting a divorce, and I was about 13. And I said, you can't beat out my dad's personality and beat yours in. It's just, doesn't. So I've always been very, very expressive and practical. And my mother, when I became older, she said, this girl's got too much sense. And I said, but I was embraced. And that's probably, to your point, and to yours as well, why I do allow them to be the fullness of themselves, because I was. Again, how do I tell them, don't be you, when I'm all me?
Right. I mean, as parents, that's the thing, right? There's a certain amount of like obedience that we would like from our kids because it just makes things easier, to be honest.
For us, yeah.
But
and
also,
them.
But also, like, we are ultimately raising adults.
Yes.
And we want these children to start acting like adults.
And to think for themselves.
Right around that middle school age is when they start defining themselves. They start spelling their name certain ways, or they just, they start being like, this is who I am.
Yes.
And so there is a certain level of like, okay, as a parent, I'm trying to guide while I'm also trying to respect your autonomy.
Yes.
And I know that's like a newer way of thinking about parenting. And to be honest, it's harder. It's harder to have a conversation with your kid opposed to say, you know what, do what I say.
Yes.
Just don't give me any lip. Don't say anything back. Just do what I say. That's way easier than having a kid and being like, let me hear your response to me and then validate your points, and then also, and there's always some point where I'm still like, all right, I'm the parent, get over there, go clean your room.
At some point, you have to lower the boom.
If it goes too far. But
trust me, my mother and my father both lowered the boom.
Right.
Let's not get it twisted.
Right.
Let's not get it twisted.
But it's good at these events that we're able to, like say, listen to them, because a lot of times that's part of the problem. They never get that chance to express themselves.
That's true.
And so here, they get a chance to express themselves and ask questions and get real answers. And that not only helps them at the functions or whatever we're doing, but it helps them at home too. So now what it is open their minds up to, you know what, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I do need to listen sometime.
Yes.
And so that's also another plus that comes out of these programs.
That's true. And when I was asking them the question of what's important about you doing well at the Amazing Shake to you, and even though it may have seemed redundant, I kept asking. And anytime when they gave the response, and I would repeat the response back to them. Yep. And then we find at one point,
there were layers.
Yes. And at one point when one of the students said, oh, that's deep. And she kind of, and I was like going, because I'm not trying to stay on the shallow end. I'm trying to have something where it's going to benefit you. Because if not, although I love being outside, I love having fun and being with my friends and doing all that, at the end of the day, I want them to walk away empowered. And that's one of the ways or the tools that I've learned with which to do that. So. Right,
because a lot of times we grow up with friends, we have all these friends, but as we know from being adults and doing the things that we do, at some point there's come a time of separation.
Yes.
There comes a time of separation because one friend wants to stay here, but you want to elevate.
Yes.
So it's like, how do I keep from being alone and still accomplish my goals and elevate? And that's when you dig down deep inside yourself and you realize, hey, in life, there's going to be changes. Yeah. There's going to be people coming and going, and everybody's not meant to be forever.
That's right.
It's funny because we're talking about, getting deeper and having their layers be things like that. And I think with my kids especially, almost, if not everyone, is a teenager, right? But one of their favorite things to say is like, well, it's not that deep, right? Because they like pushing back against this kind of idea of that there being depth beneath, our behaviors and our actions and, looking towards the future and, large goals that people might have for themselves, because that stuff is scary. Like depth is scary. When you get below that surface level, it starts becoming like, oh no.
Oh, it gets real.
Right?
And then it gets real.
And that authenticity, it's, it's really awesome and amazing when you're able to embrace it, but the ability to embrace it comes at a really difficult cost.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
There's a price.
Learning
to be paid in advance.
Know thyself,
yes,
right? That kind of thing.
To thine own self be true.
Mm-hmm. And then figuring out who thine own self even is.
Yes, exactly.
That's the hard part,
right? Absolutely.
Because like you say, when you're doing all these things and you're involved in all these social media things and all that, you know, it's like, how do you know thyself?
Right.
Because you have too many choices, and the most of them are not the right choice. And, you know, you're there, you're on this, you're on that, you're on this, you're on that. You're on all these different social media apps, even with your friends, you're not really with them in a real way, because you're doing stuff to fit in at the time, and then later you realize, man, I never liked doing that. I was just doing that so I wouldn't be by myself.
Isn't that true? You know, but what is that someone said, you know, you're comparing yourself to their highlight reel. Right. You know, you don't know, or you're looking at the end result. Like several people have said to me, oh, how do you get into the schools? And I go, yeah, there's certain things that I know from years ago that I've honed, certain skill sets that enable it so that it may look, my mother would always say to me, you know, Jack, you make it look so easy. I'm like going, yeah, but they don't know the hours that I stayed up, the drives that I had to take to get from one place to the other, you know, the ones that didn't go, the ones where no one opened my emails, the one where no one returned my phone calls.
Right.
You know, they don't know that. So now when I get them, they're like, oh, it's easy for you. I go, no, it's easy for me now.
Right.
You know, it's simple for me now.
Right.
It wasn't always.
Absolutely. I just edited a video. We just shot a little sketch at the improv school, and it was a lot of fun. But I edited the video, and it took me like maybe an hour or two to edit it and whatnot. And then I sent it to people who were in it, and I sent it to my wife, and she was like, oh, that was fast. And I was like, yeah, but like, you know, like I remember the times in which I'd be spending like 8 hours because I'm like looking up YouTube videos on how to do the edit thing that I'm looking to do. But like, yeah, there's a certain amount of sweat equity that has been put in to these skill sets that it's all the preparation, right? And now the opportunity is like, okay, well now I know how to do this thing and knock it out in a way that is helpful for me and my goals, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Right, because I know I had to do some in Long Beach. And, of course, I live out here in the Inland Empire. And just the drive, like you say, you start off and your GPS says 1 hour, 11 minutes. Next thing you know, it's going another 20. So before it's all said and done, now you're up to 2.5 hours. And then you still have to come back.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that puts a lot of wear and tear on your body. And people, they don't see that.
No.
All they see is the results of it. They go, oh, that was easy.
No.
Right.
But all the work that you put in, they don't see that
That's
part.
right.
Right. Isn't there just like just a balance that you got to play between these? Because sometimes, you know, the easy part is showing up, and sometimes you just got to show up.
Yes.
Right.
You know, but then just to get yourself there is like, that's hard sometimes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I get that. There's a constant struggle going on, right, in each of us all the time of like trying to do the right thing, trying to take care of ourselves, trying to meet our own needs while meeting the needs of others. Life's hard, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Life
It
is no joke.
Yeah, but before we think about that and become depressed, hey, I want to thank you both again for
No depression.
thank you both again for coming on the show. But we're gonna spend some more time together in the future. Matter of fact, we're gonna go to next month in April. We're going to do 2 live shows. Not one, but 2 live shows.
Putting us on the spot.
And one of them is going to be at Nick's Improv Center.
Okay, heck yeah.
And so we're going to do that, and we're going to broadcast it live.
He's pulling a Jacqui right now, just kind of springing it on you.
Because that's what we do. That's what keeps us fresh. That's what keeps us motivated.
I'm an improviser, man. This is my wheelhouse right now. So
All
whatever
right.
you throw
And even you were taken aback.
right?
Yeah, all right, but that's what we're going to do.
I'm
Thank
still
you again.
yes-anding, though.
Go ahead. All right. Thanks again for the E-Factor Show. Thank you, Jacqui. Thank you, Nick. But before we go, one thing I want to say. Next week, not this week, not week after, but next Saturday, we're going to have come to you live, Jacqui, James, Pugh, all the way from Texas. All right, we will give you more information on that. But thanks again for joining us. All right, thanks and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
For more local radio every day, listen to KCAA.
Did you know that 55% of working Americans would choose a lower-paying job to work under a leader who inspires their brilliance? In today's fast-paced world, resilience isn't just a trait, it's a superpower. If you're feeling overwhelmed by life's pace with hurry and worry,